my biggest worry throughout the entire COVID thing is when we get through with COVID, and COVID will come to an end at some point, basically what's happened with lockdowns, things like that, it's like a tool in government's arsenals. And how will they use it? So that's a big concern. In terms of what's going on with our own government, my big worry is, we can talk about hypotheticals, but I'm very worried, for instance, now about what this government's doing on the policing bill. So I don't think enough coverage is being given to the policing bill. It's in the House of Lords at the moment, report stage, so very close.
What are your concerns there, in short?
So basically what it is it's putting huge provisions against any sort of protests. Now, I know the way they've sort of pitched it is, this is something to contain, insulate Britain, left-wing protest groups, but it would apply to everyone, obviously. So let's take an example. Let's say there was another lockdown, Neil, and you went to a protest to voice your views. And even if you didn't actually speak at the protest, let's say, but you just by going, there are provisions in the bill where you could go to prison. You could have there's a new type of ASBO that's being slapped on you that would last 2 years, and they could pretty much just do whatever they like with your life over those 2 years. And this isn't hypothetical. This is going through the House of Lords. If it goes to the report stage, it's got one more reading. It goes back to the House of Commons. It's royal assent.
Richard, you wear many hats. You're a social commentator. I think it'd be fair to call you that as one of the ways in which you've come to to prominence in recent times. Now, listening to Nick there, and feel free to comment across the board on vaccinations and the rest of it.
I think the point you made in your monologue, I mean, a lot of people talk about mandating and legislation and policy and restrictions. It's just evil. It's as simple as that. And I'm kind of tired of this kind of rhetoric from politicians and people in the media who just make out as if it's inevitable, it's going to happen. So we're doing it, and we heard what's happening across Europe now. You mentioned Germany and Austria. This is tyranny. It's fascism. It's wrong. It should not be happening. Where are people's rights, our human rights, our right to choose what we do with our bodies? Who has those powers to say, no, we're taking those rights away from you? They should not have those powers. It should be repealed. Any government that can legislate to give anybody a medical intervention, whether they want it or not, is pure tyrannical, and it is evil. And I'll never back down from that. That's exactly what it is. I like to call things as they are, Neil. By the way, it's great being on your show. I'm an absolute huge fan, as we were discussing before we went off air. And it's this Welshman with the Scotsman, but that's how I see it. On your monologue tonight, if I was at home watching you, as I normally do, I'd be watching you. I'd be cheering, because everything you've said there is exactly, encapsulates how I feel as an individual. Millions of us feel like that, even those who've had the vaccine. This isn't a question of vaxxed and the unvaxxed. This is a question of morality. What kind of a society do we want to be?
Emily, I see you nodding there, and the evident passion in what Richard is saying there, and this is why I wanted Richard to take part tonight. How do you react, sitting there between Nick and Richard? What's your feeling?
Well, for me, I think the problem is that not enough people feel the way that we do on this. There is a huge amount of indifference. A lot of people take the view that, oh, it's not a big deal to get the vaccine. I've got the vaccine, so, therefore, why not make them mandatory? It's just a jab. Why not do so? And they forget that the rights of the individual must trump those of the collective. Otherwise, we do veer into fascism, as you say, authoritarianism. The government is there to protect individual rights fundamentally. And, people have drawn parallels to history, to authoritarian regimes in the past. And they've highlighted how we are othering people, how we're demonizing people who are unvaccinated, how we're talking about them, as you said in your monologue, in a way as if they're unclean, not worthy of the same rights. It's shocking what's happening in Germany. It's even more shocking what's been happening in Australia. I watched a clip that I think Unheard did, with a woman who was in a camp for 14 days, not allowed out despite repeatedly
collected from her home for doing little more than
collected in a van that had obviously been hired by the government or the local authority, and not allowed out even though you've tested negative repeated times. It's madness. And if people shrug their shoulders and think, well, I got the jab, well, I don't mind isolating, that's not the point.